So, welcome back to another episode of the Ripple Effect Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Harper, and there are going to be people that you will encounter in your life that you just know have a little something, something. My guest today is one of those. I think he holds a lot of the somethings.
Here's what makes people unhappy in retirement that we have found, which is when you expect your life in retirement to look somewhat like your life at work. A lot of unhappy retirees are unhappy because they're not acting and their life doesn't look like it did when they were 35. When you're 35, you're producing things, you're designing processes, you're moving mountains. It's an active moving of things. You don't do that when you're 65. You shouldn't have to do that when you're 65. Your life changes and you become a person of wisdom, a person of mentorship.
Joe and I met through a good mutual friend, Liz Hanlon, several years ago. Joe was sort of there when I was launching the pond for our Ripple community, and he agreed to helm along with John and Jeff, who have kind of taken also a kind of leadership role for what I had envisioned would be the retirement Ripple. They have since called it the graduation Ripple. They look at retirement as not the end, but something, a beginning to something much greater and something more awesome. That has launched them into a different genre. They actually launched their own YouTube channel called Retirement Unscripted, which is really, really cool. Yeah, they're doing a great job creating these videos and having a good time doing it without any expectation of deliverable and no schedules. Do it when they can find guests that they find interesting and feel like would be a good fit for their audience. Joe and I have really hit it off because he's just one of the good guys, right? He's just a really, really interesting individual. He claims that he's retired, but I mean, he's still teaching at an MBA level. We'll talk a little bit about that. And he's had a very interesting career path. We'll get an opportunity to learn a little bit about that, as well as his leadership philosophy and his approach. And I'm just really, really grateful that Joe agreed to do this. Should be a fun episode, should be a fun conversation for you to listen to. So with no further ado, let's jump into our episode with Joe Fusco. Joe, welcome to the Ripple Effect Podcast. I'm so grateful that you're here today. We already kicked off this conversation, already rocking and rolling. So I'm really, really grateful that you took the time. I can tell just by the mirrored glass in your background that you are in a really awesome, serene place. I mentioned in your introduction, I think you kind of, every time we've been on one of these video calls or chats, it seems like you're up in the trees. But where are you at? Where are your feet today?
So I'm in Vermont, and if you look at the reflection, you see green, but that doesn't mean summer. And it's actually very chilly today.
Really?
But yeah, so I call this my summer office. It's right outside my winter office. It's green here. It's so we always joke that Vermont only has two seasons, which are winter and July 4th. So I took this opportunity to talk to you from outside today because there aren't many of these days, quite frankly, in the calendar year. Yeah.
Is that why you moved there, or tell us what attracted you to the Vermont, where you live in Vermont now?
Yes, I came to Vermont about 31 years ago for an opportunity to be part of a growing company. And over the last 30 years, to be able to live in Vermont and have the kind of opportunity that we had from a business standpoint was very rare indeed. So the lifestyle is wonderful. But like any other place, it's full of pluses and minuses. And depending on your personality, 3.5 feet of snow could be a minus or a plus. But I came here for a professional opportunity and thought I'd be here just a few years. And then Vermont gets into your blood and you can't leave. So Here I am.
So for those that have never been to Vermont, how would you describe, aside from, your characterization of the two seasons, what's the real positives, the pluses of Vermont, and what are some of the the downside negatives if it's not just the winter and the summer or the one July 4th.
Yeah. So from a business, let's take that question from a business
Yeah.
standpoint. One of the positives is an utter lack of scale.
Okay.
And one of the negatives is an utter lack of scale. So again, depending on your attitude, the lack of scale as a positive is it is peaceful, it is quiet, it is unlike the rest of America. Uh, for example, I live in the largest town in Vermont, and by largest I mean area. So 77 square miles. There
Okay.
are 1,200 people here. So
Wow.
right, it's peaceful, it's clean, it's green. Great lack of scale makes it human scale. On the other hand, the lack of scale that's a negative is you have to work extra hard to network and connect with people.
Yeah.
You don't have some of the what we would call creature comforts that maybe some of you in Texas, for example, might uh, um, take for granted. So to fly anywhere, it's a 2-hour drive for me to an airport, right? And that's a half-hour donkey ride, a 3-hour stagecoach ride. And so, we don't have massive commercial opportunities. Could be a positive, could be a negative. It's very hard to travel and get around in Vermont. So, depending on how you feel, it's a lack of scale that's
Yeah.
either really good or not.
The piece of the area of Vermont that you happen to live in, do you get a lot of snow during the winter?
Yeah, so I live about 10 miles as the crow flies from Killington Ski Resort, which is the
Okay.
largest. It's the largest ski resort in the United States east of the Mississippi, and they get about 400 inches of snow a year. We don't get that here. I'm about 1,000 feet lower in elevation here, but we get a lot of snow. I think as a whole, Vermont is probably in the top 2 or 3 nationwide in terms of the amount of snow that comes each winter.
Wow. Do you ski?
Yes, you have to. You have to do something in the winter, or you will go crazy. So you can snowshoe, you can ski, you can cross country ski. You can go out in the yard and lay down and make snow angels if you want.
In order to go see your neighbors in the winter, do you have to have a snowmobile or cross country skis in order to get from point A to point B?
Neighbors? Why would I want to see my neighbors? And I'm
I don't
joking,
know.
of
You might
course.
want to ripple. I don't know. Just thinking.
Yeah, well, I'm joking, but that's kind of a Vermont.
Yeah.
That's a Vermont cultural thing. Like, okay, see you in April.
Yeah. Now, wasn't it the Newhart show that was actually based in Vermont?
Yeah. Yes. You can actually visit the bed and breakfast that was the exterior for that show.
No
It's
kidding.
about 30 miles due north of where I'm sitting. It's called the Waybury Inn, and it's still there. And you can walk up to it, and you're stepping into the television show.
Oh, that's awesome. So did they do that in support of the show, or did they actually film it there?
No, it's the exteriors were filmed
Okay.
there in support of the
Okay.
show, but
Ah,
the inn on the inside looks nothing like the set that you saw
gotcha.
in Hollywood, I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that was always what I was so taken by. For those of you that are like, what are you talking about? Bob Newhart had a show. It was like one of his last hurrahs for syndicated television, and he had a show called Newhart, and it was great. It was just a phenomenal show. I loved it. It was very unique in terms of the storytelling and the approach, but it was a great sitcom for, gosh, probably like the mid 80s, to late 80s at that time frame. But so
The one thing we have to correct, though, is Larry, Daryl, and Daryl.
let's thank you for.
We have Larry, Daryl, and Daryl, but they do not speak in those Southern accents that for some reason Hollywood thought, those of us up in Vermont speak like. So
Yeah.
that was the one error I would like to correct. Thank you for allowing me to.
Yeah. Well,
make
see,
that
now it's
correction.
out there, and it's forever law, that they just got that wrong.
Yep.
Which I always kind of wondered about that, because it was like, yeah, there is absolutely no Southern, how they got there, and what the accent was all about seems very odd. I thought maybe they were just odd Canadians that moved down to Vermont. I had no idea, but yeah.
No.
So give my audience just a little sense of your origin story and how you became the awesome superhero we see before us today. Because you are a really really great guy, really interesting individual, but you've also had a really interesting corporate journey as well prior to retiring.
So I started out in New York State, in Albany, New York, where I worked in the New York State legislature in various subterranean levels of the political propaganda machine in New York State. As I got a little older, I became a political consultant and did that for a number of years, serving political but also corporate clients throughout the Northeast because you can't make a living just once a year on elections. So
Yep.
became kind of a political, strategic, and corporate communications consultant in my 20s in Albany, New York. I got sick of that really quick. Politics is a bit of a sewer. And I set my resume in a 200-mile radius around Albany, New York, because I wanted to do work where something actually got made rather than this terrible thing called politics.
Yep.
And my resume landed on the desk of a growing waste and recycling company headquartered here in Vermont. I remember calling my parents, telling them I was leaving politics for garbage, and they were just so thrilled. They were so thrilled that I was moving up in the world. So I came here to join a management team of what was a small waste and recycling and resource management company, and spent 28 years on that team. And we grew that company from about $20 million in revenue to over $1 billion in revenue.
Wow.
And it currently, that trajectory continued, and it currently sits about at $2 billion. And I retired about 4 years ago.
I'm curious, just the entrepreneur in me would be curious about how did you grow it in such, from 20 million to such an astronomical number?
That's a podcast in its own. The short version is aggressive acquisitions,
Okay.
a execution of an aggressive vision of what the world would pay us to do 20 years into the future,
Yeah.
an aggressive strategic vision, and being able to leverage changes in the external environment around that business, everything from regulatory change to cultural change to demographic change to this idea that shifted in American culture is that we had to be more sustainable with our resources. So all of these things created a significant business opportunity, and we aggressively pursued it.
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun. It was a $1 billion education in how people work and how business works and how markets work and how cultures are built for success in corporations or any enterprise of any size.
What was one or two positive lessons you took away from being a part of that, look like, meteoric rise in terms of, revenue and growth?
The best growth comes from the mistakes that you make. You don't really grow being right all the time. So a lot of things got broken, and it was fun to fix them. And the fixes actually are what made the culture what it was. And the other big lesson would be the only competitive advantage any enterprise has is its people.
Yeah.
So, and it sounds like a cliche, but when you think about it, a competitor could go out and buy the same software as you. They could buy the same free ring binders down at Staples. And in your business, for example, they could buy the same CPUs and
Yeah.
so on. Right. So none of the equipment or the tools that you can buy are any competitive advantage.
Yeah.
They can all be duplicated. And the one thing that your competition can't duplicate is your leaders and who your people are, right? So you win by developing and growing the best people, the best leaders, so that you leave your competition with all the leftovers, so to speak. right?
And right there's a mic drop moment right there. I mean, we're gonna have to
Yeah,
carve that out just for a social post.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
such great advice.
yeah. So that was, I mean, really, when you grow from 20 million to a billion, the lessons are all over the place. But those would be the two that I took the most pleasure from.
What was the size of the organization at 20 million people wise versus when you left at over a billion?
Yeah, sure. So we went from 135 employees to 4,500 employees.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Right. So we think about growing companies that big. You think it's a financial challenge. You think about spreadsheets. You think about balance sheets. You think about market share. But the biggest problem you have in that kind of growth is what kind of culture are you creating for people to be the best versions of themselves so that they can solve problems for you
Yeah.
at a very high level of mastery. So the investment has to be significant in kind of embracing that mess because people are such a mess.
Yep.
All the friction, all the inefficiencies, all the mess in a company is in the people. And so the minute you, this is another great lesson I learned, the minute you embrace and accept that this is a mess and you love that mess and you love working on that mess and that you will become it will determine whether you're mediocre, good, or great, depending on how good you are at working on that mess.
That's
Everything else can be handled. You can
yeah.
handle process and procedures. I mean, in 3-ring binders and policy manuals, but the mess is what makes the company. And most managers, most leaders I found don't like messes,
Yeah.
right? And this is a Western civilization mindset. We like to, management has always been approached as a scientific discipline, right? Like we need
Right.
to build scaffolding and structure and policy and procedures. And people don't fit into a spreadsheet,
No.
right? And boy, every one of us drags our big backpack full of fears and insecurities and experiences into our organizations. And you got to say, how do I create an environment for people? Not a process for people, not a procedure for people, but how do I create an environment for people so that they can, the technical term would be self actualize, but we would say be the best version of themselves,
Yeah.
right? Use every ounce of their skill and passion and commitment and desire to solve the problems that your business has every day at a high level of mastery.
Was was that something that you and the executive team had to figure out if you were going to grow? This is what we're going to have to live with. This is the approach that we're going to have to embrace. Or was it you or a couple of the individuals on your leadership team that's like, hey, look, I know this going in. That's why I'm up for this challenge and why we can, the sky's the limit. If we're going to come in and do this, we're going to do it right. And we're going to make those messes and we're going to create that chaos and we're going to grow from
If anybody tells you that they can anticipate that, I think they're lying.
it.
The problem, like so many problems in life and in business, emerges organically. You see it. The only blessing you have is to be able to see it as it's happening. So we were, as I mentioned earlier, growing aggressively through acquisition. So when you buy 60 to 80 companies a year and do that for 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 years, what you're doing is you're creating 80, you've embraced and brought into your company 80 different cultures.
Yeah.
And so the company should feel the same way to somebody working over here as it does to somebody working over here. And so this became a problem when we actually did an acquisition of a company twice our size. And then we had a big problem of all these fractured cultures
Yep.
and then two major competing cultures. And that's when we sat down and said, this is the problem we have to fix, along with the problems that we've always tried to fix around how we're going to capitalize the balance sheet and how we're going to move into new markets and how we're going to leverage changes in law and regulation. Now you've got the realization we need to work on this. And I worked for a great CEO who understood that and gave latitude and freedom to me personally, but to some others as well, to kind of work on that problem. And he was deeply invested in that problem as well. So,
That's
but
awesome.
you can't sit down and take out a textbook and a spreadsheet and tell you this is the problem you have. You really encounter it organically. The universe gives it to you,
Yeah.
and you have to have your antenna up.
Well, and kind of like you suggested earlier, almost all of it comes back to the people and the culture and how you're driving
Mhm.
that, right? And a lot of companies, and I've seen it, whether it be through acquisitions Dell's made or other large institutional owners, and it's kind of our way or the highway, which is such a miss on their part. You bought it for the talent, you bought it for the culture, you bought it for the unique magic that that company brought to the table, and you want to sort of figure out how to sprinkle some magic dust and scale that right into your operation. A lot of large companies don't always get that. They don't understand it. And I think you guys, clearly figured that out. Was that part of the reason, because the ride was so fun and somewhat unpredictable all those years, as to why you stayed for pretty much, the length of your career?
Well, that was yeah. That's really good insight, Steve, because my job was always changing. I mean, it's not a 28-year job. It
Yeah.
was 28 years where I had 8 or 10 different jobs, and I had a boss who I'm so thankful for, who indulged all of my kind of professional idiosyncrasies around allowing me to pursue what I was interested in. And the one problem I was most interested in was people, and not from an HR standpoint.
Yeah.
I have a Michael Scott attitude towards HR. I'll I'll just put that out there. But this idea that, a good capitalist enterprise is given a lot of resources, right? And some of the most valuable of those resources, as much as capital itself, is who are the human beings that you depend on, deeply depend on, to solve problems for you. And a lot of companies and enterprises and managers don't understand that, and especially in our culture, that leadership is about being dependent on other people.
Yeah.
We we have that backwards a lot of times with how
Very
great
much
am
so.
I and
Yep.
how impressive is my title and how impressive is my corner office. And it's not how great am I, it's how great do I make other people
Yep.
great at what they do.
Yep.
And so I can't solve 500,000 problems a day. I have to depend
Yeah.
deeply on people who I've motivated and encouraged and coached, right, to be
Yep.
great at solving their problems. And so my results depend on them. That was a great part of the job that I did have, was be able to work on that particular part of the problem.
Well, and for those that are scratching their head on the Michael Scott version of or attitude about HR, illuminate them.
Well, I don't. I'll take a guess here up front. Is nobody doesn't understand that reference? You got to be living under a rock. So Michael Scott obviously is the regional manager of the Dunder Mifflin Paper Company, and the running joke over the entire length of the series was his absolute hate and disdain for Toby Flenderson, the HR person, and what HR was always getting in the way of all the fun.
Yep.
Right. So, and I don't mean to say that I have the same attitude as Michael Scott, but I do say this, and I think most good HR people would agree with me, is your culture and your people and the growth of your people is too important to be abdicated to HR only.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So companies that abdicate that responsibility to their HR departments, and HR departments that maybe blindly accept that and don't push back on that, that I have a problem with.
Yeah. I love that. Given your experience and that perspective, I just did an interview with someone that's in the HR space, and their biggest challenge right now is how executive teams are actually trying to AI their way out of HR, right? So, create a AI bot or agent that will function as the HR, guru orb all things, what even though you're 4 years removed, what do you think that possibility has? What do you view of that as far as HR and excuse me, AI coming into the HR space and really taking the people out of the people business?
Oh, it's like any major technological advancement. Does the technology serve you, or are you serving the technology? I think AI has a role as long as it is in service to a human driven vision. I'll put it this way. Here's my reaction to that. We don't need more scientists, we need more pastors.
That's good. Yeah.
That's the problem we find in the human condition right now at this point in history. Do we really need more scientists, or do we need more pastors? Do we have a crisis of not being able to do enough? We've solved so many problems,
Yeah.
medical problems, illness problems. There's not a thing that we don't have in our modern society that isn't aimed at our comfort and safety.
Yep.
But by gosh, in our souls, we're still the same as we were 3,000 years ago. We've made
Yep.
no progress,
Yep.
right? We've made all this technological progress, but we've made no progress in here. We're still fighting wars. We're still getting divorced. We're still depressed. We're still sad. We still have conflict between each other, right? So what we need are more people to move us a couple centuries forward in the human heart, in the human condition. So looking at AI as the only answer, and some people will make that mistake, I think, not everybody will, but if we look only at AI as that answer, I think we're really not addressing the core problem
Yeah. No,
or the
that's
core or the core opportunity. Let's put
yep.
it that way.
That's a great response. So even though you theoretically retired 4 years ago, you're still teaching at a university level. Give us a little background and understanding about that. Taking this major, I have to imagine this accumulated wisdom and applying it to the young minds of the future. So how did the teaching role come into play? What's kept you doing that, even though technically you're supposed to be retired?
So the that opportunity came well before I was
Okay.
retired. My personality is I've always struggled with. Very hard for me to be professionally monogamous.
That should be on a
Um,
T-shirt somewhere.
yeah, and so I always, from the very beginning of my career, in my early 20s, I always had a side hustle. I
Okay.
always wanted a side hustle. I always did things outside the walls of where I was working, just to stay interested, to be someone who explored things. And so it's going on about 13 years ago. The University of Vermont deconstructed its entire MBA program and rebuilt it from the ground up. And we can get into the reasons why that happened. But some people were brought in from the Vermont business community, for example, to be advisors to this new effort, to rebuilding a new MBA program for the 21st century. And so I got involved in that way, became chair of the board of advisors for that program, and then found myself teaching. So I started teaching about 12 years ago in the program. At the beginning, I taught personal and organizational leadership.
Okay.
And then in recent years, I've been teaching how to craft a business strategy for sustainability.
Hmm.
So I teach that course as well. I loved it. I was attracted to it because I knew in my own experience that the way, having interviewed dozens and dozens of MBA people for jobs at the company, I realized that we were educating people to solve problems that existed 50 years ago, right? The way we looked at business education hadn't kept up with the times. And this program was being redesigned to solve problems for the next 100 years and to help. And I'm a dyed in the wool capitalist. And if you love something, you help it change. And capitalism is at a place where it needs to change. There's a long history of capitalism over the last 500 or 600 years that has been very cyclical, and it has changed to adapt to different challenges in human society. And I think we're at that tipping point, that inflection point, where the way we look at capitalism, the way we look at how enterprises create and distribute value, the problems that we need to solve, the role of capitalism in building a good society needed to change. And so I was very much attracted to, well, how do we educate the business leaders of the future to address some of those problems?
What do you see over the course of 12 years? How have you seen that program change? It sounds like they're very out ahead of the tip of the skis, right? In terms of what they're doing and how they're doing it in comparison to even universities that I've seen their MBA programs. And like you said, studying case studies of how IBM's business model worked back in the 50s is not relevant, nor is it interesting for today's, student. But what is it about the program that they're doing? How has it changed or shifted relative to, not only just the curriculum and the content that you're putting in front of the students, but have you seen the MBA student themselves evolve over the course of the last 12 years?
So that's a great question, and I'll answer it with one answer: that there are a lot of people who are attracted to solving problems for society in a business context that don't have business backgrounds, meaning they didn't have a finance undergraduate degree.
Yep.
And we're finding a whole new pool of people who want to learn how to manage enterprises, learn how to run businesses that don't necessarily come at it from a purely financial background. The traditional MBA student for the last 50 years is someone who comes in with a financial background, and then they want to go work for an investment bank on graduation, or they want to go work for a consulting firm. And we need people who understand the soul of business as well,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so there's we're attracting a whole new kind of student to a business career who may have been told by the system or the culture that that wasn't a path for them because they studied political science, or they studied sociology, or they studied theater. There's one student that we've graduated in the last 5 or 6 years who had a background in food systems. And now she runs Morningstar's sustainability analysis business, right? A complete
Yeah.
180, right? Getting into, analyzing stocks and analyzing companies for Morningstar
Wow.
through a lens of sustainability and so forth. She thought she was going to come out of MBA and go into some sort of food system business,
Yep.
but a total rewrite of her career. So we're attracting people who never thought of business as a way to solve the world's problems, and were never given that opportunity. And now this is kind of the new MBA student that we're seeing.
Do you see the MBA students, rather than coming, to the program thinking that they're going to get that job on, with a consulting firm or Wall Street or wherever, are they more entrepreneurial and more open to the possibility that if the solution for sustainability doesn't exist, I'll go create it, or I'm going to come to the program so that I can understand the skills and what it would take to actually grow a scalable operation from this type of program?
There's a percentage of them that are entrepreneurial. I don't think it's any different than if you scratched any population in the country and said how many out of 100 are entrepreneurial. It's the
Yeah.
same ratio. But I think they're more willing to look at finding roles in different kinds of businesses outside of finance,
Yeah.
investment banking, and consulting.
Yeah, I was kind of curious. I had the opportunity to speak to the University of Texas MBA program a few years back, and I asked everybody how many of them were gainfully employed. I've, almost all of them are working a full time job and then doing this as kind of a augmentation, either a weekend MBA program or after weeknight MBA program. And almost all of them were employed, not able to dedicate necessarily the full time effort towards getting the MBA. It's a 2-year program, and I asked how many of them expected or wanted to become entrepreneurs, and it was, I would say, easily 90% of the hands in that
Mm.
room raised. And start talking to them, not only just in connection to the presentation I gave, but then afterwards, and how many of them did not trust the corporate landscape about what was coming, and the you and I probably know it more than any. You're kind of the exception to the rule. Most people don't go to a job and stay there for as long as you did, right? Which is, and not a lot of people are afforded that opportunity. It used to be kind of, probably our parents' generation was you pick that job and you stay with it. Build your career at the same location for as long as you possibly can. There's probably a gold watch and a pension, waiting for you at the end. And that job market has kind of completely gone poof. But a lot of them just didn't trust in the decisions that were being made by corporate America to say that I would actually be able to, even if I got hired, I might only be there for 3 or 4 years before a layoff would come or I'd be replaced by the next generation. So I thought it was really interesting to see that sort of generation of MBA student already thinking like I have to get out of this corporate, kind of hamster wheel and do something on my own.
I think this generation too is more tuned into the fact that they understand they don't want to go into a system that is run by AI.
Yep.
They don't want to go into a system that has learned and mutated over 100 years to treat people like a cell and a spreadsheet,
Yep.
as disposable, as replaceable, right? And I don't blame them. And I think this generation, because of that, perhaps understands the value of professional freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And they were given a taste of that during COVID, and they were given a taste of that during remote work. And I really think there's a change, there's a shift going on in what people expect from their careers, what they expect from their lives, what they expect, how they expect to be compensated. And it isn't always with money
Yeah.
or stock options. Compensation is a very interesting topic to look at. What value can you give people in exchange for their skill and attention
Yeah.
and energy? And that value certainly should be to make their families comfortable and themselves comfortable. But it also involves, travel, days off, flexibility, freedom, growth, education, right? Can I grow? This is what I think more companies need to understand. You will have less turnover the more of a career path you create for someone, and you create career paths for people by educating them and growing them. So giving them the opportunity to learn something new. So I know my own kids who are in their early 30s are actively seeking out different ways to be compensated.
Yeah.
Whereas you and I and our parents' generation, what did the W-2 say?
Yeah.
That was my right. And I'm a little jealous because I wish I had learned much earlier in my life to look at success a little differently.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's that, in fact, this is a great tie-in. It was in fact my own examination of that internally, my own meditations on that helped me move closer to this idea, or my idea, of what retirement should be and what it should look like. The part of my life I wanted now, right? Or I wish I'd had earlier. I was going to design and execute now. And so there's a bunch of us who are retired. One of our beliefs is that retirement is not just a 60 plus thing. The idea of thinking about how you design your life can happen at 40
Yep.
and 30 as well. So it's I think we're undergoing that kind of change, and it's fascinating for people who of any age to kind of look at what do they want out of life, how do they define success, and what is the compensation, because the compensation should never end, even if you're no longer in a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll be perfectly frank here, and this might sound funny, but this conversation here, the fact that you reached out and we're talking, is compensation for me.
Yeah.
This is
Same.
This is part of a rich life for me, to be able to talk with you and share and kind of play with these ideas. This is a great day in my life.
I love that. Hey Ripplers, before we jump back in, I want to take a quick moment to share 2 ways you can go even deeper with us. First, if you're enjoying this podcast, you'll love our paid subscription offers on both Substack and Patreon. That is where you'll get exclusive content, behind the scenes insights, and extra resources about connections and relationships that you won't read anywhere else, plus a few little other ditties. It's a great way to support the show and stay connected between episodes. And let's be honest, if you're craving something even more immersive, and who isn't, check out our Connect and Grow Ripple coaching program. Man, this is a full year of coaching, content, and community designed to help you become a more engaged connector and leader in both life and business. I love this program. I think you will too. You'll join a vibrant community of like-minded Ripplers to gain access to master classes led by dynamic experts, including me, attend live workshops, group coaching sessions, and get the accountability and actionable strategies you need to build more meaningful relationships to create an even bigger ripple effect out there in the world, which who doesn't want that? You can find the links in the show notes to sign up today. Hope to see you over there. Ripple on. I got to be honest with you. Every time I talk to you, I wish I lived in Vermont so I could go to class just to be there. I wouldn't be smart enough to get into the MBA program, but I could maybe audit the class.
I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would.
I think the way that you approach, I mean, knowing you as well as I do, just the way you approach life and giving back and contributing. I mean, you are the consummate Rippler in so many different senses of the word, but I could imagine you as a professor really bestowing a lot of this wisdom and a lot of the life experience that you brought in. And it sort of, as you were talking about your prior career, really highlighted about the fact that what this generation of students is looking for is a little bit more, like you said, compensation in different capacities. But the whole time I was thinking, having a leader like you, having a culture that understands that you're going to give the space to be successful. You also make some mistakes along the way, but we're not beating you up over it. We learn from our mistakes. We get better. We get stronger. And we certainly get to be able to experience those lessons without being penalized or feeling kind of being the punitive aspects of what traditional work environments are. And I think that's one of the things that people are looking for today, more so than just compensation. And when you can build your business and you can, or your career path, I should say, in a business that aligns with that, I think that there is a generation of workforce that's out there that's like you said, I don't want to work for the robot, but I do want to work for some place that values me and what I bring to the table. And like you touched on, allows me to bring the best parts of myself to the job.
And I think the kind of job people want to bring themselves to is a job that has meaning and makes a contribution to society in some way.
Yep.
I think it's a strong human drive to matter, to find your value and to be valued. And I see this more and more in a younger generation is, am I doing work that matters?
Yep.
And it's incumbent upon all of us as leaders to help people understand or discover why what they're doing matters. There's a story I heard once about a janitor at a hospital who loved his job because he understood that his role in the health and safety of human beings was a clean hospital.
Yep.
And he was as important as any medical professional because his job was to keep that place clean. And I think that's a wonderful attitude. So half of it has to come from the attitude of the person doing work, but the other half has to come from leaders who understand that they're not just managing processes and spreadsheets, but they're managing human beings who want to feel like they're fully human and making a contribution. And you got to explain to people what they do matters.
Yeah.
And we used to do this at our company way back when, which is we always said, made sure our people understood, is that you're not working for a garbage company. You're working for an enterprise that makes civilization possible.
Yeah.
Right? Because without what we do, without our skill, without what you do every day, is chaos.
It would be chaos.
You can imagine.
Yes.
It'd be chaos and environmental degradation and so forth. So all the things that we love about civilization happen because there's a company that comes and recycles and picks up the garbage and manages the landfills and manages the resources. So when you take the time to explain that to people in terms that they understand and can get excited about, you tend to attract the very best people.
Absolutely. You made me think of a story that I had heard Colin Powell say, former Secretary of State, General Colin Powell. I was at a conference one time where he spoke, and he was talking about when he was Secretary of the State. He got the big limo, and they go into the Pentagon, and it's got a very unique parking structure because they stack the cars. There's so many people that work at the Pentagon. And they're driving in one day, and first time he realized he needed to change limos was because his window does not roll down because it's bulletproof glass. He's an important person. He's like, "Get this out of here! I want a different limo." And his driver's like, "Why do you want a different limo? This is great. It's brand new." He goes, "I don't care. The windows don't roll down." And he said, "Well, why do you want to roll down the windows?" He said, "Because when you stop at the booth, the check-in, I want you to pull up just enough so I can say good morning." Right. And he did that. That was a common thing. And these guys would just, eat that up. Right. The Secretary of State is stopping to acknowledge, that these guys, as he pulls in, and he was always really fascinated about how they did the parking system. Like he'd never seen an operation like this and was very curious. And it was just a handful of guys that ran this whole thing. And so one day he said, I had Secret Service, and Secret Service, follow me everywhere. I couldn't go take a piss without, them stopping, where are you going? What are you doing, sir? Let's check the bathroom. And he said, he tried to get away from these guys and they'd just be everywhere. And so one day he just snuck out of his office and like kind of ducked down below the cubicles, and he heads out. People are like, "Was that Colin Powell that just went by my cubicle?" And he made his way to the back stairs and went all the way down to the parking garage. And he just starts walking up this, one of the ramps, right? And there's these guys at the booth, and they're just cutting up. And here it is, like, Colin Powell, like walking up on the middle of your day, right? And he said they freaked because they were like, "Oh my God, did we miss a call? He needed his car and he's to here. What's he, this is not a good day." And he said, "No, I just wanted to come down and see how the work conditions are down here. How are things going?" They're like, "Great." Like did we do something wrong? And he's like, "No, absolutely not." He goes, I just, are we taking good care of you? Do you have proper air conditioning? It gets cold here, in DC in the winter. Do you have enough heat? And this has got to be a tough job. And they're like, "Oh no, sir, it's great." One guy had been there like 22 years. The other guy was like working on year 10. He said, "We must be doing okay if you want to hang at this job for as long as you do." He goes, "I got a question for you." And they're like, "Oh boy, what is this?" And they thought they were, again, like going to be in trouble. He said, "How do you do this car situation?" And he said, well, the main guy's like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, I just got to ask, like, you get all these cars in here, and I'm curious, how do you know who you're going to let out and when they get their cars?" And, it's like this elevator system. And the young guy was like kind of smiling, and the old guy's like, "Oh, it's a first in, first out system." And he goes, "Nah, I just don't buy that. I just can't see that." And the young guy says, "Tell him." And he goes, "Well, tell me what?" He goes, "No, don't tell him." He says, "Well, we have a ranking system." And he said, "You have a ranking system? Tell me about that." He goes, "Well, the ranking system is this. If you say good morning, you stop in and say good morning, or you wave at us, you get in the good section. And if you don't even acknowledge us, which a lot of people don't, you don't get in the good section." And he said it was such a reminder that no matter who within the organization, what level of success you've been at the highest level all the way down to the lower level, how you treat people has a ripple effect, right? An impact. And he said, of course, about that time, he said Secret Service had finally figured out he was loose, and the whole building went in lockdown, and they come screaming around the corner, and there he is. But he said it's just a reminder that no matter how important you are, how much success you've obtained, that you're not any better or any worse than the next person. It's just how you treat people. And I think about that from a perspective of, what you were saying, which is just understanding that piece of human nature, that connection piece, and that role that those guys played in terms of organization and who gets in and gets out, because DC's a nightmare when it comes to being 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. They had a direct impact in how many people just didn't quite get the fact that just because you didn't even say good morning or say hello or even acknowledge them with a nice wave as you went through the by the guard shack, that could be affecting your life in such a major way. And I always just stuck with me because it was such a perfect example of even Colin Powell, who'd achieved the highest rank you could go, obviously, in the military, and now is running the country as the Secretary of State. He still was like, that was a leadership lesson for me. That was a way to understand and appreciate that. Yeah, that made sense to me.
100% true. I also think there's another thing that he was doing that was very valuable. That's a good lesson for all leaders, which is great leaders have a love affair with the truth. And so you have to get out there and understand the truth of how your business is working or not working,
Yep.
what your people are happy about or not happy about, what is changing in their lives, what is changing in the lives of people that you serve around your business. Because I think when leaders, it's very easy to get insulated and disconnected from those truths. And then you start making bad decisions.
Yeah.
And then when all your decisions are wrong, you go broke and die, so to speak.
That's right.
So, a leader has to get out of their bubble, and even their intellectual bubble is to find things and people in other fields, in other perspectives that can help you understand the world around you and how it works. Because you're going to spot opportunities there, you're going to spot threats there.
Yeah.
Right. And you want to be connected to the truth of who you are as a leader, how you behave, and what your impact is on other people. But then also the same for the enterprise that you're running.
Yep.
Who are we? How do we act in the market or other places? And what is the impact that we're having on folks, positive and negative? Because when you get disconnected from reality, that's when your business dies.
Yep. Yeah, beautifully said. Let's shift gears for a second and
Sure.
talk about Retirement Unscripted. Tell me
Yes.
about the YouTube channel, this format that you guys have created, and what you're doing with this, because I think it's phenomenal. I'm so excited by what you guys are doing.
So people should know that while I'm the co-host of Retirement Unscripted, you, the person I'm talking to, is the godfather of Retirement Unscripted.
I don't know about that.
Well, it's a great ripple story because I met you and then you started introducing me to other people. And I met two wonderful men on the pond through your Ripple organization, John Fastneck, who's down there in Austin, Texas with you, and Jeff Cornwall, who formerly of Nashville, Tennessee, now lives in Panama City Beach, Florida. And you allowed us to create this space on your pond called graduation or beyond graduation. And
beyond Ripple graduation.
Beyond Ripple graduation, because we wanted a place on the pond to connect with other people who were retired or retirement adjacent or thinking about that period in their lives. And so as part of our fun that you allowed us to have, we would host live events where we would talk to people and have conversations. Then we started recording podcasts, I guess, for lack of a better word, of talking to people and learning about their experience. And it just kept evolving and evolving like any good business organically. It just evolved and became Retirement Unscripted. And the idea behind Retirement Unscripted is to have conversations with people who are retired or retirement adjacent or any part of their life about how you design that phase of your life. What do you do with that freedom? What do you do with that opportunity to make your life whatever you want it to be? And we call it Retirement Unscripted because the conversation never has any agenda. It's a completely unscripted podcast, but it's also emphasizing this idea that retirement is an unscripted, and you're happiest when it is unscripted. You may have a compass or a direction that you're heading in, but the more open you are to making a connection with other people or other ideas, and the more you explore, the happier you might be. Even though there are
Yep.
no right or wrong answers, the happier you might be, the more you keep this kind of an unscripted, open part of your life. So we started doing this. We have guests every so often. We've had guests who are in their 40s who are thinking about redefining retirement. We've had guests who had an event where they sold their business in their 40s and trying to find out what the next level is. We've talked with people who are retired and how that's going for them and what their approach and philosophy is to that period of life. And it's been a riot. I mean, it's actually something incredibly fun to do. Um, we have gotten feedback from people how we've helped people think about a very challenging thing to think about. And I think we owe it all to Steve Harper, who created the original Ripple around this podcast. So now you can find this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts as
You
well as the
guys
pond.
and you guys do such a wonderful job. I would like to say I was a genius knowing who I was putting together, but you guys took the baton and ran with it. And I think what was really fascinating about seeing it evolve in real time was the fact that here's three people who did not know each other, come from
Mm-hmm.
very different backgrounds and experiences that could come together and actually find a unified purpose, which is, hey, what is that unified purpose? Let's find a way to discuss this thing called retirement and do it in a way that allows people to recognize that that is not a ending, it's a beginning of something so much more magical. And I think what I was telling somebody just recently that I referred to your channel, I've seen two types of retirees: people that have lost that connection to whatever they did, either because they were ready to hang it up or maybe were forced into a retirement situation just by the extension, but they lost their network in a lot of ways because they were defined by the people they saw every day at their companies or the people that they interacted with for vendors, partners, customers, things of that nature. All of a sudden that stops because the dynamic has changed and shifted a little bit. People that were left behind that are having to work every day are jealous of them, and they're jealous of the people that get to work every day, right? And then you have the people that just take it and say, look, I have something left in the tank, but I don't know what that is, but I've got all this experience. I've had, all these different scenarios that I've seen play out over my life and my career. And I feel like I've got something to give back and to contribute. And I like that because at the end of the day, the people that are sort of in the latter, they really find a purpose in whatever that next purpose is. They may not know what it is, but they're pursuing it continually, right? And finding their new social network, their new purpose. And what I really love what you guys have done is like you said, you interview people that are in their 40s. Jeff's daughter was a great, that was a genius interview because she is such an amazing individual anyway. But I know for a fact she doesn't want to be, doing what she's doing 20 years from now, right? So she's already thinking ahead, and she's got kids and she's got her own personal interests, as does her husband. She wants to do things on her own terms, not necessarily defined by what her corporate decisions are. So you have that younger generation that's already thinking about it, which is a great thing to do. And then you have those individuals that are retired. They're like, I don't want to just sit around and watch Netflix all day. I want to be out there and I want to contribute. I want to do something, whether that's through volunteerism. I want to be, in some, have some experience in the nonprofit space, or I maybe want to get involved in an organization like SCORE, which is, contributing that business
Mhm.
acumen back to young entrepreneurs and business owners that may not have a board or may not have the luxury of a big network that can help them navigate things like payroll or taxes or growth and scalability. So I just think what you guys are doing is just such a magical conversation, and the fact that you do it in such an unscripted way is the magic behind it.
Well, thank you. We have a rule which is no advice, and we endorse no right or wrong answer. We just let the conversation go where it could go because everybody's different. The one thing we're finding that people have in common, and you alluded to it, is everybody needs meaning and purpose.
Yep.
And you're just using another period of your time to find a new meaning or a new
Hmm.
purpose. Here's what makes people unhappy in retirement that we have found, which is when you expect your life in retirement to look somewhat like your life at work, right?
Yep.
So a lot of unhappy retirees are unhappy because they're not acting and their life doesn't look like it did when they were 35.
Yeah.
Meaning, right? When you're 35, you're producing things, you're designing processes, you're moving mountains, you're it's an active moving of things.
Yeah.
And you don't do that when you're 65. You shouldn't have to do that when you're 65. Your life changes and you become um, a person of wisdom, a person of mentorship, right? A person of somewhat uh, can philosophically look at the world, right? So if you're trying to jam your 65-year-old body into a 35-year-old job, you're going to be unhappy because
Yeah.
your new strength is to share wisdom and to mentor people and have ideas about how things could work and so forth. And so people who are happiest accept that new strength and accept that new role and design a life around being a person of wisdom, being a person of experience, being a person who can mentor and see the forest for the trees. You get wildly miserable, I think, if you want to be that 35-year-old. Well, I have to start a new company. I have to have a job. I have to get up and go 9 to 5 every day. Right? No, 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 no. You're overlooking the gift, which is to say there is no structure now, and you can make it whatever you want, but it has to have purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
That's all people are looking for. And there's no right or wrong answer to your individual definition of purpose and meaning. You just have to go find it yourself. So
Yeah.
we love bringing people in and playing with these ideas and playing with what it might look like. You are given this period of life of immense freedom and flexibility. What are you going to do with it? And no one can judge you and tell you that's the wrong thing to do with it. And no one can tell you, oh, you did, that's the right thing to do with it. It just has to make you happy. We have a podcast coming out, which I'm very excited about. We threw one question into the middle of the group at the beginning, which was, is it possible to fail at retirement? And I think this was one of the best conversations we've ever had. And I want to get a plug in for that because that'll
Yeah.
be out on that'll be released on June 5th.
Okay. Can't
And
wait.
it's an interesting question because can you fail at retirement? But can you fail? What does failure or success look like at other periods in your life as well? And I think people will find a very interesting answer and a very interesting filter to use to answer that question for themselves.
That's awesome. Yeah, we will definitely cross promote that for sure.
I do want to say I think your original insight there, which is the number one thing you have to do at any stage of life, but it becomes vital in retirement, is connection.
Yep.
It is the most important thing. You cannot become disconnected from the world. You cannot be disconnected from people. You cannot be disconnected from ideas. That in itself is the beginning of an entropy
Yeah.
where that leads to unfortunate outcomes of. But boy, the great work you're doing in helping people understand that value, because and what I love is your idea of connection is more real and organic. So much of what we call network is performative
Yep.
and fake
Yep.
and selfish, right? And that's not the same thing
No.
as true ripple type connections, right? So what you're doing and helping people and bringing people together is wonderful because then there's a law of science, I think, that when you talk about systems, that every time you create a connection in a system, a biological system or a physical system, you create a capacity.
Yep. Oh,
And
yeah.
so, right, all these connections, I could not do a podcast on retirement by myself and have it as good as it is now. I had to be connected. I had to create connections to create that capacity for all three of us to do a good job at helping people think about a period in their life. And it's true, if I look back, it's true of my whole career.
Yeah.
It comes through connection. Absolutely. And it's a biological imperative almost for our careers, for our lives. And so I appreciate Liz Handlin. Can we shout out
Yep.
Liz
Oh,
Handlin?
yeah. Definitely,
Liz
Liz, for
Handlin
sure.
is I'm assuming I've never met her, but I've known her. She's been my friend for 25 years.
Wait, you?
Is a
I had no idea you guys never met.
never met, but she said, "Oh, you got to meet Steve Harper." So she's kind of an Austin hub
Oh,
herself
yeah,
in
without
terms of
question.
introducing people. So people I've never met in person. You and I have never been in the same room. Jeff Fastnack and I have never been in the same room.
Yep.
I did get to visit Jeff Cornwall in Florida when I was down there recently. And so we've met, but that's the only person I've ever met out of this wonderful community of Ripplers.
Well, we got to fix that. We need
Yeah.
a guys trip
Right.
somewhere, I
Yeah.
think.
Yes. Absolutely. I don't know
Well,
if any of you ski.
I would love to ski. My knees would.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll sit at the lodge and wait for you guys with a beer, but
That's considered skiing.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, I just think that the approach that you take and what you guys are bringing to this topic, I think, is so important because I think that, like you said, connection is critical for you not to lose your place in line. And I say that to a lot of people that are, going through maybe a career change and or might have been their last big career opportunity, but you've got to figure out how to find your people and how to build that network and do it in a way that allows you, not just because of what doors of opportunity they could open, but because of the genuineness of the friendship and the connection that you make. And what I think is kind of cool, and we're sort of proof of this, is even though we haven't been in the same place at the same time, we've been able to find that connection even in a 2D
Mhm.
world via Zoom or,
Absolutely.
a platform like this. And I don't think a lot of people actually go beyond that to actually try. Because when Liz, you and I connected because of Liz, when she suggested it, we had a very great conversation and kind of, it was, it was fun. It was interesting, but it takes that next effort and the next effort after that in order to keep that ripple going forward. And I think that's where a lot of people drop the ball and they miss the opportunity. Connecting you to John and then both of you to Jeff, had that not continued, right, then you wouldn't have the podcast. And I think the cool thing about that is it's taking the baton and carrying it forward and understanding the responsibility and the commitment to having, play that role and continuing to push that forward, I think is really key. And especially people that are in a particular circumstance like retirement or a career shift and they don't quite understand what to do next, well, do something, right? Do something to connect,
Sure.
open your heart, be willing to, embrace the possibility that somebody out there would like to get to know you and like to, know of you and of them.
I think it's possible. I think the mistake many people make, and I think it's driven by our culture. This is how our brains are trained, is we think too small
Yeah.
about networking. We think of it as a Newtonian process, which is essentially cause and effect.
Yep.
If I meet this person, if I go to this mixer or whatever, and then something will happen. It's not. It's less like Newtonian physics and more like quantum physics, which is to say your job is to get into the field and not understand completely how it's made, but trust that there are things that are going to happen. There's energy that's going to be exchanged and things will happen organically. And I think this is a crucial, not only for people looking for a job, but for retirees is
Yeah.
I am not omniscient enough to know what all the possibilities are with the billions of combinations of people and things that I could possibly contribute to or be
Yeah.
a part of. I just have to get in there and just connect with other quantum particles as
Yep.
much as I can, and not without any expectation, without any give and take or expectation of being paid back, right? Or
Yep.
right? And just let it happen. And the minute I understood that, and it didn't happen until after I retired, that's when things started opening up for me for the retirement life that I'm still trying to figure out, still trying to build. And it might be, I'm not trying to build a retirement that's 20, 30 years old. It might be, again, 60 different retirements
Yep.
over the next 20 years or so. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? I had the blessing of having like 15 jobs over 30 years in my company,
Yeah.
all organic, all organically happening, spontaneously combusting, right? In a quantum field, that's how things work. And I don't know what the next 20 years are going to look like, but you got to get in there and get on the wave, the particle wave, which is a great metaphor for the ripple, right? Exactly.
Yeah, it is.
Right? You got to get out there, and it can't be performative, and it can't be fake, and it's not a process or a procedure or a 3-ring binder
That's right.
to connect with other human beings on a level that really works. So,
Well
um,
said. Well,
great lessons from you, great lessons from the people around you, great friendships and relationships that I did not have 4 years ago and that I could have never predicted 4 years ago because I'm not that omniscient.
yeah.
And you got to let go
Yeah.
of control, this kind of Newtonian Western civilization idea that we've grown up in. It says, I can control everything and everybody. I can build the scaffolding. I can build the machine to get me the job I want or the life I want. It takes a great deal of faith. Ripples are great vehicles of or expressions of the faith that we have in each other, the faith that we have that things will work out as they're supposed to work out in some way.
Ah, well, you beat me to one of my questions I was going to ask you is when you hear of the ripple, what does it conjure up? But that was the perfect definition. We're using that for that question.
It's such a great word. I mean, it's a great word. It's
Yeah.
better than networking. Who wants
Oh
to
yeah.
network, right? Ripple is because ponds are such great biological systems.
yeah.
Life happens in a pond, underneath the water, on top of the water, in the reeds at the side of the pond, right? It's an open system that allows things in, new ideas, new people, new influences. And it's the most real word for what should happen between people. The fact that you brought it into business life and even retirement life for me is really just a wonderful, wonderful work.
Well, and I love the way that you frame that because really at the end of the day, when I think about it, we've all heard of, I need to, my bucket is either full or it's empty or whatever. But if you think of the pond, every drop that you put into the pond by taking that effort and making it is the deeper your pond goes, right? The more water that you've got in that, theoretical pond. If you don't put any effort out and you don't engage with people, the pond eventually dries up and goes away.
Right.
And so
Right.
you have to constantly be investing in your efforts in order to continue to make that pond healthy for yourself.
And ponds turn over to stay
Yep.
healthy, right? They need activity, they need contribution. They need any biological system needs inputs from the outside.
Yep. Yeah. I love how you frame that. That is so fantastic. All right. Well, I could talk to you all day long, but I want to be respectful of your time. And I actually have a meeting I got to get to here in just a little bit, but I wanted to wrap up with a few Ripple connection questions if you're up for it.
Sure.
All right. What is Joe's superpower?
The problem I have with that question is I don't allow myself to think about that.
Okay.
But one of my superpowers is the ability to make simplicity out of complexity,
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
and then also to spread calmness to others.
Yeah. Yep. You're very good at that as well. What is a hidden talent or maybe a talent that you don't often get to share that you have that you wish maybe you got to do or you leverage a little more?
Yeah, I wish I could teach 24 hours a day. I teach in at the university at the graduate level for 7 weeks a year. I teach occasionally here and there at my old company. But if I could do it every day, that would be something.
Really? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Do you
And I don't mean in a formal way
yeah,
too, either,
yeah.
just,
I love
good conversation. How about that? That's what
yeah,
I wish I could do more of as well.
that would be great. What what do you normally like to do when you have yourself, obviously being retired, you might have a few more of these days than some of
Mm.
us, but what do you like to do when you don't have anything on the agenda, nothing to do? How would you spend your time ordinarily?
I love to consume pop culture and
Really?
look for eternal truths that can be applied to any situation, business, family, raising children, marriage, and so forth.
Can you give an example?
So I have been. I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, so I'm saying this to the world. I have been watching all 7 seasons of Mad Men over and over again. And each time you realize what a deep, deep work of understanding the human condition, but also a very specific period in this country's history. And every time I watch it, there's a new layer of truth that I discover about people, about culture, about the way the world works, the way human beings work. And so I love to do that. My wife laughs at me a little bit, but if I have some free time, I love to do that. And I'm not just mindless. I guess I'm making an excuse for myself, but I'm not just mindlessly watching this. I really love movies, television shows, music, comedy, because I'm looking for truth somewhere. I'm looking for eternal truths or insights that are transferable to other things that I like to be involved with. That and go to the gym.
Yeah, I love that. When you find those truths, where do you put them?
Oh, I put them in notebooks.
Okay.
Yeah,
And what do you do with
yeah.
the notebooks?
I put them on a shelf, and then every so often I take them down, and I have a very long Google Doc that is just a collection of these thoughts and insights and perspectives that I just add to all the time.
Do you share that Google Doc with lesser mere mortals like myself, or
I've never shared the Google Doc with anybody, but that's an intriguing question, Steve. Would I share it with you? I probably would. I probably would. Parts of it.
yeah?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I would love to see the inner workings of the mind of Joe and what you're taking, because I like to think that I do the same thing. I like to watch. I look for, I believe that if you're paying attention, life offers a lot of lessons, right? And it could be a great show, it could be a great movie, it could be a good piece of art, it could be music, and it could be great conversation like this, right? And these things that, I've learned a few things today about you that I didn't know before. And that's the beautiful thing about connection. That's the beautiful
Yeah.
thing about conversations like this. Let me finish with two last questions. I
Yeah.
could ask you questions all day long. We should just do a podcast of that sometime. But
I'm up for it.
all right, if you were to provide a piece of advice that would be on a billboard that everybody would see on the way to school or on the way to work, and then see it again on the way home, what would you like to share with the world?
My God, that's. I don't know if there's a billboard large enough. And that's a great question because the challenge is to edit yourself down to. So it would be love one another. And I
Yeah,
know that sounds trite and cliche, but I think Jesus said that
yeah,
really, right? Love one another. And that's pretty good advice from a pretty good source.
absolutely. Why is it?
Find something, someone, and someone to love.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. I love that. Why would love one another resonate for you? Why does that, why is that so important?
Well, I think most of the misunderstanding, violence, dysfunction in the world comes from the opposite of connection, which is
Yeah.
division and hate. I think Mark Twain said, like, travel, for example, is the greatest antidote to prejudice.
Yep.
So, right, the things, the people that we don't understand and know, you need to connect with them. I have a lot of friends of a lot of different political persuasions, for example, and none of them want to get out of their bubble to understand what the other person is
Yeah.
saying, right? Because it comes from what you have to assume every human being, minus the sociopaths and the psychopaths, gets up every day and just wants to do good and live in a good world. And so we just have different ways of expressing that or different ideas about how that gets done. And instead, we focus on the ways that we're not connected rather than the ways that we are connected.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping love one another kind of is a catch-all for that idea of connection and the ability to build something that we're all proud of.
I like that so much. That was very well said. We already asked you well, you sort of already answered what the ripple effect means to you. So I'm going to let that answer stand. But what ripple can I be doing for you right now? What positive ripple could I be creating for you or look to create for you?
I think you're already doing it, but I would ask that, boy, I would love to ripple for people who think they're struggling with this idea of what to do with the next part of their life, and they think they're struggling alone, that they connect to us and they connect to Retirement Unscripted and find that a lot of people have the same fears and the same worries as they do. And there's a way to talk about them.
Yeah.
So if you could, and you're doing this already, Steve, so I hesitate to ask, but if you could just ripple what we're doing with Retirement Unscripted out there, that would be deeply appreciated.
Absolutely. I'm 100% on board to do that. And I've got a few people I want to send to you as guests that I think would be excellent for you guys to interview. But the work you're doing, for a guy who's supposedly retired, I still call BS on that because you seem to be one of the busiest retired guys I know. But
yeah, but again, it's not retired. It's I have the immense freedom and gift to do with my time what I want to.
That's beautiful. Yep. Yeah.
That's all it is. It just doesn't look like it's a new paradigm. It's not the old paradigm, which is go down to the office from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. and 5 days a week. It's more quantum than Newtonian. So to speak.
Yeah, I love it.
How can I create a ripple for you? Let me throw that back at you.
You're already doing it just by being a guest on this. I mean, in all honesty, I would love to. I would love to see. No pressure on the document, but I would love to. Set up a time and have maybe a more regular cadence conversation with you because I learn something every time that we talk, and I'm really blessed to have smart friends like you that look at things from different perspectives and different angles. I certainly think as I'm growing this other software company, I could benefit from knowledge and experience that you've had in terms of scalability and where you're going. So I just think we might find some opportunities to have, talk a little more shop. That would be great. I feel like I could learn so much from you.
I'm available. All right. Do not hesitate. I have plenty of openings on my calendar for you right. So do not hesitate.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, we will definitely have to do that, but I really want to thank you for the time today. I really enjoy it every time we get an opportunity to have a conversation. Again, shout out to Liz Hanlon for connecting us all those years ago. I had no idea you guys had never met in person, but she's a character. When you do, you'll be like, oh, why did it take so long? But we'll have to find a way to get you down here to Austin so that, we could all hang out.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me as a guest. It's like therapy to think out loud with you, and it's wonderful. And I appreciate it deeply.
Yeah.
And,
same.
Anytime, my friend, anytime.
All right. Well, my guess is we're going to have to do another follow-up to this one for sure. So
anytime.
All right, guys, we'll be back with another episode of the Ripple Effect podcast. But until then, Joe, ripple on.
Thank you. Ripple on.
All right. Hey, we've reached the end of another Ripple Effect podcast, and I want to personally thank you for joining us today. It's because of you that we do this work, and I want to encourage you to be sure to follow our guest, show them some love and support any way that you can. If you like this episode, share it with a friend, a colleague, or heck, just put it out to your entire network. It's through these efforts that you actually create a ripple for this show. It helps us grow and expand. And if you'd be so kind, find us on Spotify and Apple Podcast and leave us a review. That helps bring the show into the view of more audience. So we greatly, greatly appreciate that. And finally, just a quick shout out to those of you that have signed up for our Patreon and Substack. As a paid subscriber, we can't begin to thank you enough for your support. It's through this investment that you show that the work that we do matters, and it allows us to continue to do it and support it. So thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it. If you haven't signed up at Patreon or Substack, what the heck, man? What's going on? Throw your boy a ripple, would you? And come on over. That's where you'll find exclusive content, some behind the scenes special stuff, and you'll also get an opportunity to reach out to our guests on the podcast. I will take your questions personally and take them to them and get you answers. How about that? That alone, that exclusive behind the scenes thing, that is worth every penny, maybe more than a couple pennies. How about that? So anyway, thanks for joining us. Thanks for supporting us. As always, ripple on.